Hello everyone, this is Jonathan from FirePig Studios, and I would like to introduce you to our new project simply titled CarLot. CarLot is a DMS or dealer management system that will be designed with the purpose of providing a free solution for an industry with limited and expensive options at this time. Before beginning with the plan for our DMS package, let me take a moment to explain what a DMS is. As you may have already assumed, a DMS, or Dealer Management System, is a software or platform that is tailored for automotive dealers. So essentially it's for selling cars. The system runs on a computer or computers and allows for tracking of car sales, inventory, payments, customer information, and all kinds of goodies in between. With all these items tied together, you should have all the pieces needed to run a successful automotive dealership in just one place. At this time, there are very few options available for this kind of business architecture. The most known ones work well, but are very expensive and not very flexible for small dealerships just starting who can't afford the overhead that these packages provide. So our mission is to create a, hopefully, cost-free option that is open to the public. Our creation series videos will cover the entire process of creating this software, from planning, designing, programming, all the way to full release. So join us on this journey and watch as our idea grows into something real. That being said, let's start a short planning diagram that will evolve over time so we have somewhere to start. So what we want to do is come up with a diagram to basically plan out how the software should function. This is going to be our first planning phase. Other things will get added later. Certainly, this is just going to be a rough idea so we can start planning. After we plan the software itself, we'll have to do things like mock-up ideas for the interfaces. Go ahead and get a diagram set up for SQL database connections and how we want the database schema to work as well. First thing I'll do in this diagram is I'll just mock up a quick logo to represent CarLot. Draw.io. Funny thing is, that's actually the logo we use in this video for CarLot, and we'll probably use it a lot more later on during development of this software. It is not going to be the official logo, I don't think, if we'll even have a logo. Ideally, the splash itself will be customizable for whoever wants to use a CarLot package. So auto dealerships can put their own logo and stuff like that. But we still may throw a CarLot logo in there somewhere just to show that it's the framework that they are running. So you'll see me just throw in some pills here and a circle or two just to get the CarLot logo set up so we can identify and staple everything that we work on regarding this package. Let's try out a few different colors, see how things are going to work. It's been a while since I used Draw.io, so I have to get used to all the tools and everything. It's kind of like doing vector art to a very small degree. You got your fill colors, your lines, and all that good stuff. It's probably just all XML based, that's why. Or SVG. Basically, I'm trying to figure out how to make an outline around the text fill, just in a way that feels sufficient. I think I try a few different things here, but I'm happy with the outcome with this in the end. Text logo isn't quite enough. You always want to pretty it up a little bit with a graphic or additional color, something that makes it pop a little. So I'm just gonna pull up the FirePig logo itself, trim it, and we'll throw it in a circle and just add it. And of course you've seen this image already because it is what I use for the video. In case you haven't seen it, that is the full FirePig logo. It was AI generated about a year ago. I don't know what it looks like he's holding. It's supposed to be a battery. Didn't quite come out. Tried a bunch of different AI prompts to get it where I wanted it. This is the best result I got, so we're just going with this for now until we can get, something custom. Now I'll tell you what Fire Pig is supposed to be. He's supposed to be a cartoony looking little pig, proud with his face to the sky, wearing a wolf pelt or a cape with the head still attached. The head is actually supposed to be kind of setting over his head like a hat. You're supposed to see the snout and the teeth and all that stuff on top of his head still. The AI didn't quite get that, but after a bunch of different renditions, this is the one that came out the best, I thought. I did want him to just be like holding a large, what would look like a AA battery under his arm, holding it triumphantly with the cape flapping in the wind, surrounded by fire. Not quite how it came out. This came out looking very Norse, I thought. So we're just working with the different border options and stuff. I don't know why you couldn't just get the border to go in a circle, since you were able to choose circle cropping for the photo. I'm sure there's a way to do it. I just don't know how. I know like doing an vector art wouldn't be an issue. It would pick it up right away. But for some reason this didn't want to do it. I love that right there. I think the easiest thing to do would just be able to increase the border and make it white. But every time you wanted to make the border around the picture, it would just come out square. So basically just going to have to create another circle and overlay it, make the center transparent so the picture shows up. Have to work it a couple different ways, but eventually we get the shape right and it looks okay. So we use that throughout the rest of the video. The most annoying thing I found while doing this was the clipping, or no, I'm sorry, not the clipping, the snapping in Draw.io. I could not for the life of me find how to turn off snapping or what button to press to allow me to do incremental adjustments without it snapping. I think eventually what I end up doing is just turning the grid off, and I think it stops snapping when the grid is off. I don't like having to do it that way, but that's what we ended up doing, and it did eventually work to a degree. You can see me looking through the menus here, trying to find out what to do. Was hoping there was just a quick snapping check mark. Draw.io is pretty big now, and I figured their menus would be a little more intuitive and make the tools easier for things as simple as this. A little bit left underneath his pectoral muscle there. Alright, we're looking pretty close here. Now, if you actually deselect the picture, I will do eventually, I think. You can see there's a square around the frame still. Now that's around the picture itself, not around the circle we just made. So I think I need to change that perimeter value, get that hidden. Take a few different tries here to get it right. All right. So that should do for the logo for now. We'll be able to staple that onto everything we do from here on out while we're developing this software, just so we can keep a name on it and keep track of what you're looking at when you watch these videos in the future. So let's go ahead and get started with the actual diagram. Let's plan out how we want this software to work. What we're going to need to start with, of course, is just the main program itself. That's going to be the base for everything that runs and everything we do inside the program. So we'll just call that main, which is pretty popular in most programming languages. Now, in here, we need to decide how we want to compartmentalize everything that we do. It's easier to set that up now, so when we're programming in the future, we can figure out where we want all of our functions, how we want things set up, the kind of classes we want to create, objects, etc. And it'll also help us figure out how to lay out our database, and that'll be very important later on. So I think we will start first with customers. Because our customers will basically link every other subject in this program, they will be the most pivotal thing we work on first. Dealing that this is focused primarily on CarLot, our inventory is going to be our second largest focus. That'll of course hold the cars that we have on the CarLot, not only ones that we have now, but probably also ones that have been sold, possibly also pending purchases, and keeping track of how that links to the customers. Then we also are going to add our settings here. Settings are going to be everything we need to modify the program and other things dealing with the CarLot itself. All right, so we got a base idea of the first things we want to set up for the program. This, of course, can expand later, so we can add more items, but for now, this is going to be a good starting point. Let's go ahead and break down each of these into a little more detail, so we know what kind of information we want to include with these subject fields. Now, I'm sure that there are proper diagramming, I don't know what you want to call them, shapes. I know when I did some diagramming in college, the professor required us to use certain arrow sizes, certain shapes to indicate certain patterns and things in the programs, but this is ours. Let's do whatever we want with it. All right, so in our customers, we want to include some information here, and we're going to go ahead and type out a small list. It's not critically important that we connect how each of these items work with each other at this time. We just want to put that we're going to need to collect this data so we have a good foundation when starting our database schema. Will probably be the next video because we want to lay out a lot of that before we even start programming, just so we have it there. It's not always fun to try to create a database while you're programming, adding new fields and stuff like that. It's a good idea to go ahead and lay that all out first and then make your program work with it. You can add fields and programs for that field later. There's not really one way to do it all. And usually it's never perfect on the first try. We'll collect things like the personal details for the customer, you know, name, first name, last name, middle name. I don't know if you want to collect social security number or not. I don't know what security laws there are based on that kind of stuff. I'm sure if we store it in the database and encrypt it, it's fine. Let's see, you want to add vehicles. That could be vehicles that they have purchased already, vehicles they are purchasing, maybe even loan information. Then you have notes in there, so just general stuff you want to add that's not database related, just information, other stuff you want to put in. We will have to be careful with that. We'll probably have to do strip codes and stuff like that, so you can't contaminate the SQL database. for inventory. Definitely cars. We definitely need cars in there, but some dealerships also do repairs, their own automotive work. So you may want to be able to inventory parts. You can also sell parts if you like. So it might be a good idea to go ahead and create a system to inventory all that as well. Now, with this information, if you're also inventorying parts and stuff like that, you'll have to create subsequent tables to record pricing, how much you purchased items for, how much you'll sell them for, minimum you'll take for them, stuff like that. Because you may not be the only person using this software. You may have salespeople which have access only to that information. They may not see some of that info, but if you allow them to adjust prices, you need the software or the seller itself to be able to see what the minimal is you'll take, stuff like that. Because, there are profit margins and you got to make money to stay in business. Now, some general settings. This will be stuff for the program, stuff for the dealership itself. Dealerships have a lot of specialized documentation that they have to keep track of for federal, local, and state governments, much like the VADA, which was the Virginia Automotive Dealership Association documentation, sales documents for vehicles, DMV documents, insurance documents, because dealerships don't let you have a car without having the proper full coverage insurance. I've seen a lot of dealerships just go ahead and repossess your vehicle if you lose insurance, because they are notified if you lose insurance. Pretty cool stuff. We want to save stuff like user information, because this will have ACL, that's access control levels. So certain users can see and use certain items. So we'll need to make that very specific and granular, because you may have people working in the dealership, you may have people working in the parts section, you may have people that just take phone calls and put in customer information. So we'll go ahead and make specific stuff like that. We'll probably make it to where you can create user groups and then select what items they have access to, or you can do it per user themselves. We'll have to figure all that out as well. Display settings. So of course, your software is going to be set up. Maybe you could do colors. Probably have a primary dashboard where you can choose widgets that'll show on the dashboard. Like if you want to see sales numbers, current vehicles. We'll also want to go ahead and have like 2 monitor options. So you can set up a secondary monitor that is customer facing only. You want to be able to select what's on that screen, because you don't want customers to see certain data. You just want to advertise cars. Maybe you want to just show promotional videos, stuff like that. These are things we'll have to think of as we're developing the software, because these are things dealerships will want to do. You also have your database settings, because, of course, the database itself is going to be very important. You're going to have certain login details, username, password. You have port settings, IP settings. You'll have a local option that's built into the software itself, or perhaps you already have an SQL server on a different system that you want to connect to, or outside of the software running on the same computer. And then website uploads. A lot of dealerships use multiple sales outlets. Craigslist, Auto Trader. Okay, there's only 2 I can think of off the top of my head. But you can set up certain settings so that the software automatically uploads your vehicles and CSV files or other delimited files along with photos to those sales sites, and it'll automatically generate listings for you. Very important if you use a lot of sites and you have a lot of inventory, that you can't manage to upload and list all those vehicles yourself, because it is extremely time consuming. So that is something we will want to go ahead and keep track of. That is a very important thing to include, and all the big dealer software does that as well. So we want to make sure that we cover everything the big guys do, and we want to include things that dealers want that those guys don't have either. And that's going to be a very important part of our structure. Now, we're going to break down each of these a little bit more. Let's get some granular stuff in here. Personal details for customers. Name, address history, because your customers could move, and you want to keep track of that, especially if you're trying to collect money. And then, of course, you're going to have payment information, payments that they've made, information if any of their payments have not gone through, which vehicle is connected to, if that vehicle has been paid off, because you don't want the payments going towards a vehicle that they have bought from you in the past, and it has been paid off. So that's going to be a very important thing to track as well. Some people have authorized users. That means that person come in, make payments for them, manage things on their account for them. Maybe like a co-signer for the vehicle, so they have just as much say as the actual borrower does. And all this can be amended. If any of you actually work or own a dealership and you have ideas, or you know there's information that you would want to include, things you want to deal with, let us know. Because this is going to be dealership software that we want to advertise as for dealers by dealers. Now, does not mean dealers have programmed it. I, for one, am not a automotive dealer, but I want all the input that automotive dealers want to give, so we can feel like that this was made by them, because it's all their ideas, their thoughts, their opinions, what they need. It might be free software, but I want it to be useful. I want it in demand, and I just want to get it out there for everybody. All right, so under customers, we also have vehicles category, because we want to track vehicle information, of course, for the customers, especially if they bought their vehicle from us. We want to relate it to them one way or another. Maybe even have a list of vehicles that the customer was interested in. Maybe generate things like mailing lists, so they can get information if prices have changed, you have new offers, you want to send out a specific offer just for that customer. You know, you had a customer that came in a month ago and they were really interested in this one car that you had, but there was something, maybe they thought the price was just a little too high at that time. You could send them a special offer just on that vehicle. Maybe if you do financing, you can set special financing circumstances for them. I'm sorry if any of my verbiage is incorrect. Just trying to work with what I have on the top of my head. I got status of purchase in there, so that could mean it is pending, it is currently being financed, it's paid off, or it's currently in repossession. I think if you repo a vehicle, it has to set X number of days before you can resell it. And there you go. Insurance information, that's very critical for many dealerships. It may be a legal thing also. I'm not 100% sure. Of course, your purchase documents, that's from the dealer documents you see in settings. You had the customer, you had to fill out everything for their sale or their contract. And now you've saved all that documentation for that specific customer. And that's going to be there as well for you to review, reprint, whatever you need. And of course, their payment history for that particular vehicle. Because if you have one vehicle with a certain inventory number, and let's say customer had it for a year and stopped making payments, and you did repossess it, and you kept it through repossession phase until you could resell the vehicle and you refinanced it, you can show the total purchase amount throughout history. Maybe you've sold it 3 times. You can see how much money you've made off that particular vehicle. Customer payment history. I'm just trying to come up with stuff here. It looks like this is stuff you'll need to keep track of for every customer, especially when it comes to their money, how they paid, anything like if it was on a credit card, confirmation of the payment, the status of payment, if the payment bounced or was rejected. Maybe we set up some sort of system that contacts the customer if they did have an automatic payment that went through, but it didn't clear. Give them X number of days before you send another message, or X number of days before start looking into repossession. You know, good stuff like that. It's always great to keep up communication with your customer one way or another. You tie it to emails, text, just about any form of communication you can think of. Basically, the other one's just notes. And notes, of course, are going to be anything that you want to put in there. Anything that we don't already collect through the software itself. If you can't find a place to put it, you can just throw it in the notes. If another salesperson or another employee works with that customer and they have a question about something, they say, oh, so-and-so told me this, they quoted me this price, and somebody will just be able to pull up the notes if they can't find it somewhere else and go, okay, I see that so-and-so left a note here that says this. So we'll definitely want to create a nice note tracking system. Now, I know probably the most important thing for any dealership is going to be the inventory section. Now, even though I don't draw out a huge scheme of what the inventory section is going to look like in this diagram, that is going to be probably the biggest focus of creating this software, is creating how the inventory is stored, what information we store. Each item on a car is going to have a breakdown in the database as far as different tables, engine codes, VIN breakdowns. You're going to have year information on vehicles, color codes, engine sizes based on VIN, cubic inches, everything you could think of. We're going to have to store that information in the database so we can relate it. Vehicles have anonymities based on certain things. You could just scan the VIN code and it will give you a lot of the information. And we also want to be able to use a drop down to select certain things we want to add to show the vehicle has, or remove it in case that vehicle actually does not have something, because you do not want a discrepancy in your information when you sell something as big of a purchase as a vehicle to someone and you say, hey, it has this, and that customer finds out a little bit later, hey, you said this vehicle had this and it doesn't. Going to get into some gray area. A lot of good dealers will, give somebody money back on that, or they'll take the vehicle back and allow the customer to get a different one, or just, null the sale altogether, take the vehicle back. But if that does happen, you definitely want to be able to relist the vehicle and change certain information so it matches the next time you have to sell it. So you want to keep information like your stock number for that vehicle, the status of the vehicle, if it's currently sold, if it's on the lot, if it's in the repo lot, things like that. You'll have the VIN number, details of the vehicle, purchase details, line items. So if you do run a repair facility, you can have line items for repair receipts to show everything that's been done to the vehicle. You want to keep track of the costs, things like that, because once a cost reaches a certain amount, selling a vehicle becomes improbable. So you want to keep track of that. You can probably set limits to say, hey, we can only spend this much before this vehicle is unsellable. Or we're not going to be able to make a profit on the sale. So then you decide, to throw it in an auction, what have you. Of course, photos. Now, photos are going to be a huge thing when it comes to vehicles. Picture's worth 1,000 words. The best photos are going to be the best things to sell your vehicles, especially when listing them online. Because people are going to get online, get on your website, look at these vehicles, and they're not going to come even look at the vehicle in person if the pictures don't tell them a story that they want to know. So you want to be able to store the photos. We'll set it up to where you can create photos. This would be where some ideas would probably help us. Do you want to just plug in a camera, have it automatically detect it, find the photos? The only issue there is you have to know what vehicle it goes to, if you do one vehicle at a time, stuff like that. You'll be able to upload those photos. A lot of cameras take photos that are obnoxiously huge. We can set it So it automatically scales photos to certain sizes, maybe creates different iterations for those photos for thumbnails and things like that. Definitely something to look into, especially if a number of photos. If you don't have photos for a vehicle, we need to make sure there are default placeholder thumbnails that say, photo coming soon, something like that, just so it's not a big gray box and, it's uninteresting to the eye. Or maybe generic photos of every type of car that exists. That could be another database issue to look into later. Then we also had inventory for parts, stock number, fitments, the type of vehicles those parts fit, because we know a single part can go to multiple cars. And we want to be able to understand which cars those go to, especially if we want to maximize our ability to sell those parts. And a small description of what the part is. Donor stock number, so it can relate to a vehicle that you may have that these parts are getting pulled off of. So you can also say, if you want to sell that parts car later, you can say, hey, it doesn't have this. And it'll also help you adjust the value to determine how much you would sell that parts car for. Now we're already back over to the settings. The settings have the most information at this time as far as our diagram that we started on here. For users, you want to have user IDs because everybody needs to be able to log in. You want to see their name. They're going to have a username for login. Also keep track of everything they do when we do logging, because it probably will be ACL logs and stuff like that. Audit logs. And you track their email. Email could also be used for communication, updates to the customer, password, access level, of course, for our ACLs. Then we want to look into possibly using login systems like a lot of businesses use for LDAP, Active Directory, a single sign-on, SAML, just so that they can use their business login just to log into the software. You don't have to log in again once you're logged into your computer system. It'll have all that. It can log in with those credentials. That would be a great way to do things. Probably something down the road, but at least it's an idea now. Now here's where we get a little bit more on the display settings. Do we want to personalize display settings? A certain user logs in, it saves all their settings, their colors, their fonts, backgrounds, what display settings they had on their dashboard, how the secondary monitor is showing what it displays as, or do we want that just set up by the dealership? So no matter who logs in, it's always going to show the same thing on the outward facing monitor for the customers. That'd be something that'd be up to you. Maybe we make that an option to do either or for the primary admin user. Of course, we want to be able to use the company logo. If you have a logo, you can make a splash screen. It's going to show it all over the place inside of the software because it is your brand. You want your brand to show on just about everything you do, including receipts, sales, web page, everything. This software will also likely be a client-server system, so you can run it on multiple computers. Get all the settings from one main computer, including your databases. So salesperson can connect on their own computer over at their desk in this software and get all the same information real time that you're getting on the primary system. That's pretty much how we're going to have to operate, because any dealership is probably going to have more than one terminal, and we don't want to have to worry about licensing and all that junk. We want this to be free, if possible, to all the customers that want to use it. Now, I keep hinting here as I advertise this software that we want it free, and then I say always, if possible. There are limitations to things, especially when it comes to getting all the DMV records, documentation, stuff like that. There are ways that we can connect to the dealership administrations, the DMV, and things like that to get documentation, to get information, but I have not reviewed it all 100%. I do not know if these services are free. If it costs money for us to connect to those systems, then we'll have to forward those charges to the customers because we don't make any money. So we have to pay for it somehow. So hopefully it would be modest, if anything. It would just be a surcharge, and we would probably just forward those fees to the customer. instead of saying, hey, we'll just pay this blank and you can use it, that will become very inefficient. So we want to have an option for built-in database. Let's say you have only one computer and plan to use this software only on one computer forever. We'll have a built-in SQL system, probably SQLite. So SQL database is completely internal to the software. You don't have to worry about any other setup whatsoever. Let's say your business expands. We want to be able to set you up with an SQL server or let the software run as a server so you can connect to it from other computers in the company and have the same stuff. So we want to make sure that we have SQL connection information in there for that particular setup if you want to have a remote SQL database. When creating tables in your database, you want to be able to control the naming conventions, so we'll put something in there to customize that as well. Because you may have an existing SQL database that you're going to add this software to, and it needs to be able to name the tables in a way that doesn't interfere with existing tables in your database. A lot of the times, you will create tables with a prefix for something software specific. By default, we'll probably use CarLot underscore then the table names, but we want to make sure this is customizable in case you want to do something different. And of course, we'll have to create all kinds of different functions and things that will rename these tables in case you find that you want to rename the schema later, so it doesn't interfere with the operation of the software. Now we're just going to go ahead and get all these diagrams pointing in the right place so our layout's clean. I'm not a Draw.io expert by any means, so I'm sorry if there are better ways to do this that you know. Feel free to share it with me in the comments, and I will definitely try to apply it next time I work in this software. If the way I create these diagrams drives you absolutely insane, and you know better methods, go ahead and share those as well. I don't do diagramming very often. I think the most I did was creating UMLs for Java programs. It was kind of almost self-generating through the UML generators in the Java IDE. Needless to say, we will probably not be creating this software in Java. Ideally, I think I want to go with C#. I enjoy programming in C# a lot more than I do Java. Can do Java, it is versatile. Probably be creating mobile apps that will connect to this. Web pages will most likely be a thing as well. But right now we're going to start with the primary DMS system. If you can think of anything that this software should definitely include, please let me know, and I will make sure to add it to this growing and evolving diagram for this program layout, because I want to make this the best package possible for what everyone wants that they can't get right now without paying a substantial amount of money, or a recurring monthly fee is astronomical. Payment processing is probably going to be a thing we need to look into as well. I don't know the particular ins and outs. If there's ways for us to generate some income as well. Is there a way for us to tag on percentages? Can Can we make a little money? Is there a way we can make it an option for dealers, for us to make a little money off each sale or payment as well? Definitely, just right now, we'll work for tips. It'll be free, of course, but it would be nice to make some money eventually. I have worked in dealerships before, and I have seen what they pay for some of this software, and I saw a need for it right away. I was like, okay, well, if I want to open my own dealership one day, I'm going to need my own software, and I'm not going to pay the prices that these companies want. I thought it was absolutely ridiculous. I was like, well, I can do that. Like, why in the world will they charge this much? It's because other people don't do it. So I saw a need. I said, see a need, fill a need. Now, given this was, probably 10 years ago, there was only one really big package that everybody knew around here for car dealership. I'm not going to say any names, but it was generally good software. I found it kind of hard to navigate and find things. I didn't really work with it every day, though. I just worked with it on days that my boss wasn't there, and I would take payments for him and stuff. I designed the web page for that dealership, and I found it very difficult to create the web page so it would automatically work with the uploads from that software. I think it was a comma delimited file, and then if you had commas in strings, it became a complication. I eventually generated my own algorithm to break down that CSV file and generate CarLot data for the web page. And then the software company had an update and completely broke how the CSV file was generated, so I had to create all new algorithms, and it was very frustrating. So we want to mitigate any problems like that in our software and make this as easy as possible for everyone. If you yourself have experience with dealership software and you know of needs, things those softwares do not have that you would love to have, let me know. We want to make this as custom as possible and the best experience for everyone who decides to use it. I would like this to feel like $1 million package for the price of nothing. I know a lot of freeware packages just don't live up to the big competitor, and I want to be able to say that we surpass it. So here's the full layout we have currently, what we're looking at for CarLot. The last things I added there while I was babbling were information for your websites, which I saved to vertical container because I'm an idiot. So you see all the settings there for your documents, like I was saying earlier, that you have to subscribe to and get from those entities. That would be the biggest thing we have to figure out. We'll have to contact those agencies, figure out what kind of APIs they have, what they offer for us to connect and get those documents for the dealers. But ideally, what I want this series to be is I want to be able to set up this software, and I want programmers to watch and learn new methods and find ways to develop software as well. This video series isn't specifically just for dealerships, but we want everyone involved so we can make this the best package possible. I hope to work with you and everyone else later in the upcoming project as we develop CarLot and make this something great. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you next time. Bye-bye.